Hi, Arcfieldweather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, October 27th. What a difference a day makes in the Mid-Atlantic region. What a difference a frontal passage can make. We were socked in with a lot of low-level moisture in the Mid-Atlantic region during the past few days. Cool front came through the region in the overnight hours, and today a cooler and drier air mass will filter in on increasing northerly winds for places all along the I-95 corridor region in the northeastern part of the nation, from D.C. to Philly to New York City to Boston. The return of sunshine today, again, on those increasing northerly to northwesterly breezes that'll kick up to 15, maybe even 20 miles per hour or so. Meanwhile, in the tropics, there is a tropical wave over the western part of the Atlantic Ocean that will kind of meander around over the next few days. It looks like it will not have a chance to make it all the way to the eastern seaboard. We'll talk about the reason why in a moment or two. And another area to watch over the next several days will be the Caribbean. Right here, this is the latest forecast map for the next few days by the NOAA's National Hurricane Center. There will very likely be a system that forms in the Caribbean Sea. The sea surface temperatures quite warm still this time of the year. In fact, warmer than normal. Another system tend to meander over the next few days and kind of drift in this fashion, but instead of making it all the way to the eastern seaboard, we'll see a low pressure area will kind of push up to the north and east and kind of act as a kicker in inhibiting the chances for that particular system to make it all the way to the eastern seaboard. This will have to be monitored over the next several days. Certainly not a threat any time in the near future for the U.S. mainland, but again, the Caribbean is certainly prone to the formation of some tropical systems even this late in the month of October, with the quite warm sea surface temperature pattern there. Speaking of which, this is the sea surface temperature anomaly chart for the Caribbean Sea, the southwestern part of the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. This map, by the way, from tropicaltidbits.com. All this area in orange and red represents warmer than normal sea surface temperature. So again, pretty much virtually the entire Caribbean Sea is above normal this time of the year. Again, still conducive to the formation of some tropical systems. It looks like there will be a wave moving in this fashion, probably staying that far to the south because of strong high pressure over the eastern part of the U.S., and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Still some quite warm conditions also over the Bahamas, the southwestern part of the Atlantic Ocean. Some colder than normal readings right along the coastline, right in this region right here, and we'll see how that evolves over the next several days. But still, a lot of warmer than normal conditions, so that the fact that we're late in the month of October doesn't necessarily mean that it's too late for the formation of tropical systems. Well, let's take a look back at the CONUS, the continental U.S., and in this particular case, I really wanted to show a broader view looking at North America forecast maps from last night's 0Z run of the GFS. First, we're looking at 850 millibar temperature anomalies. Just want to show kind of the evolving pattern over the next couple of weeks. A lot of cold air now has arrived in Alaska. Fairbanks, for example, very likely to have high temperatures in the teens only for the next several days. That's below normal for this time of the year, even that far to the north. So there's a lot of cold air starting to show up now on the maps of North America, at least over Alaska, and we'll see in a moment here the western U.S. and western part of Canada. Let's just kind of quickly move forward here and watch the evolution. Again, we're looking at 850 millibar temperature anomalies. Here we are by the time we get to the first half of the upcoming weekend. A lot of warmer than normal conditions across the northern U.S., much of Canada as well, and colder than normal, kind of confined to Alaska, western part of Canada. Splotch of colder than normal air over Texas for the upcoming weekend as well. In fact, the World Series begins on Friday night in Houston, probably with the roof closed because of the threat of showers and thunderstorms as a cold front comes through, but by Saturday, they'll probably have highs in the 60s in places like Houston. Maybe the roof will be open for Game 2 on Saturday night. A lot of warmer than normal conditions by Saturday night up across the northern U.S. and the southern part of Canada, and still cold over Alaska and areas just to the west of there. Now let's move forward. Some of this cold air starts to push to the east here by the early part of next week. We're looking at a Tuesday afternoon forecast map, 850 millibar temperature anomaly, still quite warm over the northern U.S., probably pretty mild in the mid-Atlantic region as well. The World Series shifts to Philadelphia for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. A lot of cold air kind of bottled up at this time across western Canada, Alaska, and the western part of the U.S. And it does make a run into the western part of the nation. This is pretty darn cold air here by the time we get to about a week from now. This is next Thursday, November 3rd, still remaining quite warm. So the general theme here is pretty warm outlook for the eastern half of the nation, a pretty cold outlook for the western half of the nation over the next week to 10 days or so. Let's go out a little farther in time, and again, still warmer than normal by the time we get to the end of next week. We're looking at Friday, November 4th here across the Great Lakes, Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, and again, it's kind of dichotomy here with colder than normal conditions. And again, this will be quite a cold air mass here moving into the western U.S. by the time we get to the end of next week. Still quite a warm air mass in the eastern half of the nation, and expect a strong surface frontal system delineating the two, cold air to the west, warm air to the east, again by the time we get to the end of next week. Still remain quite cold up across Alaska by the time we get to the end of next week. Well, let's now wrap up with the surface forecast maps, again using the operational run of the GFS 0Z. Nice Canadian high pressure system now has drifted into the Great Lakes region. It will clear out conditions in the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast U.S. We've been socked in the Mid-Atlantic region for the last few days with a lot of low-level moisture, drizzle, and fog. That all will push away today with the influx of cooler and drier air on increasing northerly winds thanks to this large high pressure system. Meanwhile, a little bit of a tropical wave right here showing up on the weather maps. And let's move forward here as we get into the end of this particular work week. And here's that weak tropical system off the eastern seaboard, pretty much well off the eastern seaboard. But because of this strong high pressure that shifts from the Great Lakes to New England over the next 4 to 8 hours or so, this system will not quite reach the eastern seaboard. And another factor will be this upstream low pressure area. Here we are by Saturday morning. This low pressure area pushes to the north and east. It's not a strong system, but it's enough of a kicker that it too will kind of help to inhibit any chance of this tropical wave from making it all the way to the east coast. Here we go now into Monday morning. There will be some showers on Monday, it looks like, in the Mid-Atlantic region from that weak low pressure area that moves out of the south central states into the Mid-Atlantic region. This is kind of an important forecast day because it's Halloween Day on Monday, and the first home game for the Phillies in the World Series, which will be game number 3, will occur on Monday night, so October 31st. So we'll see how impactful the shower activity may be on Monday. Not a big system, not a heavy rain event, but something to monitor. Then we'll move forward, and here the GFS by, let's say, next Tuesday morning is certainly showing on the maps potential for a tropical system over the Caribbean Sea, but lots of high pressure to the north. Notice strong surface high here Tuesday morning, Tennessee Valley, another one off over the Canadian Maritime provinces, and the combination of these two will help to send this system, keep this system way down to the south, at least initially and perhaps forever. We'll see here as we move forward through next week, now into a week from right now. This is next Thursday, November 3rd. Here's that low pressure area down in the Caribbean, again with lots of high pressure over the eastern part of the nation, kind of sending it on an east to west track, and perhaps eventually into Central America, if not there, maybe the Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico. This is now looking ahead to the end of next week. A lot of cold air at this time up across the western half of the nation. There'll certainly be cold enough air for some accumulating snow in many places of the western part of the nation by the end of next week, but the eastern half stays warmer than normal, and a strong frontal system at this time at the end of next week will divide very chilly air to the west across the western half of the U.S. and warm air to the east in the eastern half of the nation. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.